lecture sera en français ce soir. Honorable Justices, Permanent Secretaries, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, what a great pleasure to have you here to Unicaf University. This topic is very timely, and it has brought unforetold opportunities. In our midst are some people well known to me. I would like to pass introductory remarks before going to the topic, some anecdotes. A friend of mine, a distinguished medical doctor, was highly distinguished career. When these opportunities, ICTs, came about, suddenly he says, I'm quitting. He was in a lucrative job, earning him many thousands of US dollars. He said, I'm quitting. And I said, where are you going? He said, you know, I have to go back home. He got home and said, I'm quitting being a medical doctor. And I'm changing my profession to that of a farmer. So then, medical doctor versus farmer. And then I said, but you have no clue about farming. He said, well, with ICTs, I can learn. So he proceeded to learn via internet the methods for farming. Lo and behold, did he not begin to make money? And now he wants to buy a private jet. Consequently, I said, if you're going to buy a private jet, and we teachers are very lowly paid, at least I can begin also using the internet, ICTs, to learn how to become a pilot. Then he said, by all means, because when I get this private jet, anytime and every time you're welcome to fly it. This encouraged me because in the midst is a friend of mine who is constantly leaving town. Every time I call, he says, I'm out of town. And for him, when he says I'm out of town, it doesn't mean like me when I say I'm out of town, I go to the cover belt. This one would fly out of the country. So with this private jet, I said, I could possibly track down this friend of mine every time he travels out of town. Yet another friend in the midst, for many years he said to me, please teach me the ABCD of legal principles. I've never had the time, and when we engage in arguments of the sort, I always win. And he says, you see, that's why I wanted you to teach me some legal principles. Now, of course, I don't have to, because the time has come when you can learn even better legal principles using ICTs, e-learning, the subject of our discussion. This week, I met another medical doctor who said, I am a medical doctor, I am practicing, and I decided to study law. So he went on to study law at NIPA. Then he saw us signing a memorandum of understanding, NIPA and Unicaf. After finishing his bachelor's, he came to see me and said, now I'm ready for a Master of Law program. I want to be registered. Lo and behold, he got registered in that Master of Law. He's a medical doctor, and I said to him, why the hell? Why do you want want to become a lawyer? He said, don't ask. My history, my passion, I always wanted to be a lawyer. Now then, between for myself, studying piloting, become a pilot, my childhood passion from the day I was born, before I could even say ABCD, I had always wanted to become a medical doctor. I was dissuaded by my mother, who said, oh, you see, you suffer a lot. When you see a person suffering, you suffer along with that person. How could you possibly be a medical doctor? I said, I really want to. So she dissuaded me. And when I went to Onza, I found my feet leading me to law school and not to medical school. No regrets. But I still have that burning desire to be a medical doctor. Then I had also with me plodding along and my colleagues from Unicaf plodding along, we all said, we shall introduce medicinal sciences, including Doctor of Medicine, taught by my friends who are in this room. Immediately my childhood passion was evoked. I suddenly wanted to enroll and become a medical doctor. So then, with the modern technologies, everything is possible. And as soon as we enroll, we begin that medical science. I will register and start studying medicine. That having been said by way of anecdotes, let us now turn to the subject matter for this discourse. When we look at the developments in sciences, technology in particular, it has been fast-paced. As long as we can remember, and we will show you, societies began to advance rather gradually. Of course, as they advanced, so also the inventions began to emerge. 18th century in particular was cardinal for the development of technologies. Machines, from agrarian revolution to industrial revolution. Machines of all types began to be developed. As these machines began to be developed, so did also technologies in education. Some of you, I don't know how many, I for one, the way I started my education, grade 1, grade 2, I had a slate for a book. A slate is a piece of slate, whatever I can say. And so it has limited capacity. And a chalk, as the teacher spoke, you needed to write on that little slate. And as soon as it filled up, of course, you couldn't write any longer, so everything needed to be in your head. And very quickly you erase, you put everything in your head, you start writing your things, because the teacher is not waiting for you. That's how some of us started our education. It's really a miracle from heaven, that we even acquired our education. So let us see briefly the technological developments in the field of education. Tyson, little volume please.
going to shape the classroom of tomorrow.
I think that deserves an applause. Thank you. So then, as you can clearly see, it shows that education tools that we use today are obviously coming from somewhere. Imagine then if our ancestors said, we're not going to embrace technology, we'll keep with that slate. Where would we be today? And as that caption was showing, I'm sure most of us were able to place ourselves somewhere. We saw exactly where we entered the education field. When we come to consider, to look at today, what are we doing for the future? What are we doing to affect the learning processes of younger generations in the future? Imagine if we refuse to embrace new learning tools and we say where we are is enough. Imagine how much effect this would have on our education system. Question always asked is, why do I have to bother? Every day new inventions, every day new technologies. Do I have to bother? Life is good as it is. Do I really have to bother? By the way, as we may all know, before knowledge used to multiply itself every 100 years, doubling of knowledge. 50 years, 30 years. You ask me today, how much doubling of how many years does it take for knowledge to double itself in modern words? Because of the new technologies, more particularly ICTs. Now it's at 13 years. So every 13 years, the inventory of knowledge in the world doubles itself. What does this take? If by answering this question, why should I bother? We bothered. What this really means is that, number one, and I challenge all of us, number one, we should stop eating. Oh, I'm so hungry. That should not be part of our vocabulary because we really want to keep up pace with the developments in the world. Oh, I'm so sleepy. we got to cut down on sleep. Oh, I'm so tired. It should never be in our vocabulary because we have all that. We got to keep up with the knowledge. And that also is true for the new technologies, which is constantly changing. Look at your telephones, iPhones. Every year, there is a new application being added. Of course, as you know, keeping up with the technology of today, it will add value to ourselves. Some of my colleagues, friends who are in this room, they are constantly upgrading their knowledge. And when we meet to have a discourse, they look so much smarter than me. Now when they do, they challenge me. I cut down on sleep. I don't sleep for 1 week so that I can catch up. I don't eat for 1 week. I don't feel hungry for 1 week just to catch up with them. So we need to be bothered because by keeping up with new knowledge, what we are really doing is we are adding value to ourselves. Hey, look, even if you're not in formal employment, you look so much smarter when you meet your friends for a discourse. So, schools, businesses, all aspects of life become richer when we keep up with knowledge and technologies. Opportunities will come, and if we're not keeping up with advancements in knowledge, when we get an interview, we will realize that you're really so ancient, you don't fit for modern jobs, and you don't get hired. Or if you're in your own business, for example, the farm I talked about, or the man who became an entrepreneur, the second Mr. Trump, in the construction industry in Zambia. If he didn't follow up with new technologies, obviously he cannot reach or advance to the level that they are today. So it's good to learn. It's good to keep up with the knowledge which is being manufactured all the time. This brings us to the topic of today, e-learning. E-learning. Before I speak about e-learning, could anyone tell me now the most valuable company in the world? Which one? You see, the people who keep up with the knowledge, they know already. It's Amazon. And what does Amazon do? Does Amazon have stores? Have you ever gone to an Amazon store anywhere in the world? No. It's using e-commerce. E-commerce. Amazon does not own a single store. What it has done using new technologies, every store in the world has become an Amazon store. You want to buy an iPhone, you want to buy an Apple, you want to buy a shirt, go to Amazon and you find exactly what you want. You pay, Amazon will then go to its sources. They're just little people, very smart little people using new technology. So then, in the 60s, there we saw some evolution taking place with regards to e-learning. People will understand e-learning differently, but for us, in the education sector, e-learning really refers to both the software and the software and the online learning. That's what it refers to. So let's see what this does for us. our current education system. It's very well known fact that, particularly in developing countries, we are slow to adapt. We're very slow to adapt. I was, together with some of my colleagues, not so dull in school. When we were in law school, we were pretty good. We thought we were good. When I went to America, I thought I was good. Those kids were smarter. They were so much smarter because they already had access to technologies which I didn't. However, with the notion that cut down on sleep, don't feel hungry, just work, I managed to catch up. We are struggling catching up with technologies in this country. Doesn't matter, we'll catch up. So, when you look at traditional methods of educating ourselves, our children, what really comes to my mind, number one, is the high cost of education. That, to me, is what separates e-learning with traditional learning. Because, as we shall see, there is very little expense with e-learning. Compared, as you can see in our country, we are spending billions of kwacha establishing new learning environments in particularly rural areas, countryside areas, building schools, finding lecturers, teachers, whom we must also train at tremendous cost. Books, desks, chairs, food, because you have to have dormitories where the kids should sleep. Very high cost. Tuition, no wonder tuition in private schools is expensive, because private schools have to recoup the investment which they are put in these structures. When you look at global public education, expenditure is high. It is 4.7% of country's GDP goes to education, the traditional brick and mortar type of education. In Africa, because we must catch up, we spend the most amount of money in educating our kids, and even adults who have chosen to become kids by going back to school, like me. 5% of our GDP. High. So then, with that in view, you have building classrooms, theaters, study material, the right educators. Not everyone can be a teacher. Even me, I pretend to be a teacher, but we have better teachers in this room. So you have to find people, clever people, to teach equally clever kids. If you don't choose clever people to teach our kids, the outcome is very dull kids, and they fail Ziare. And you have also to be worried about the ratio. Imagine in one classroom, the right desirable ratio is about 20-25. Now, because of the demand, you find in one classroom 50, 60, 100 squatting on the floor even. Quite a contrast. All you have to do is set up a learning platform, have access to the internet, prepare modules. By the way, these modules are of exact same material as the textbooks, which students use in a formal classroom. Then you have lecturers and administrators, but there is a difference. Lecturers are internet-based. They are in cyberspace. They can take up any number of students because they are in cyberspace. Whereas face-to-face, brick and mortar, there is a ratio issue. If you have too many students in a class, you cannot touch every student and take your knowledge and give it to them. So here is e-learning, and why we're here to see what it does. Ghana, as a case study, 28 million people, slightly bigger than Zambia, 17 million. Growing population, everyone needing an education. It has only 212 higher education institutions offering diploma degree programs. So then, what the leadership in Ghana said, we are going to introduce a rigorous program of e-learning so as to make education become available to anyone and everyone, adults, younger generation children included, so that we also, because education is also a catalyst for democracy, national development and democracy. So then all the polytechnics and universities have introduced programs via e-learning, ranging from applied arts, social sciences, commerce, science, and technology, manufacturing, engineering, because anything which can be taught face-to-face is also capable of being taught via e-learning. Our neighbor, you have a very strong leader there, very strong physically. He doesn't sleep. They are also revolutionizing their education system by integrating their traditional systems with e-learning, because that man wants every Tanzanian to become educated. They have what we call Vision 2025, and which requires the nation to meet specific development goals within a 10-year period. In that vision, one of the ways they are recognized in transforming the economy development of Tanzania is by turning the economy to be knowledge-based. Fortunately, as we shall see for Zambia, we are also, leadership says, value addition to every product that we export. ICTs and e-learning in particular is playing a pivotal role in Tanzania to educate, because an educated nation is also an educated consumer. I borrowed that. Dr. Tembo and Mrs. Tembo will know where I took it from. Is that store still on? Is there any reason why Zambia should lag behind? Should we even think of lagging behind? With the brains gathered in this hall, should we even remotely consider that we should lag behind? it certainly has been recognized that e-learning is gaining a tremendous attention in Africa. It has also been recognized in a recent report that education using ICTs is rather still low in Zambia. However, to correct this imbalance, our leadership has adopted policies that will introduce various ICTs to most of the schools, if not all the schools, to ensure that Zambia does not lag behind. So then, let's look at the myths, the perceptions, and the facts about e-learning. There is a myth going around, and everywhere I find it, I correct it. E-learning is expensive. That's a myth, that's a perception. The truth of the matter, ladies and gentlemen, is, however, e-learning is extremely inexpensive compared to brick and mortar traditional learning, which, as you know, our state officials in this room will tell us that it actually costs billions of kwachas to set up a learning environment using brick and mortar. Whereas e-learning is one of the most cost-effective means for educating our people. Rather than having to set up classrooms, course material, teachers, suppliers, hire someone to train new employees and so on, with e-learning, we just do it once. Just do it once. Oh, by the way, we often hear, oh, I cannot send my child to study under virtual arrangement. E-learning is not effective as classroom teaching. For all I know, only because I wanted to see all of you, my friends, today, if we had chosen, we could have given this lecture virtually. But I wanted to see you anyway, so we invited you. The truth of the matter is that studying online does not. Rather, the notion that studying online does not get the same value as sitting in a classroom is false, terribly false. Because I know everyone here will enroll after all, and you see when I say it is false. Then again, many people will argue, sitting in a formal setup like this, you are able to interact with other people, friends, kids are able to make friends, and so on. The truth of the matter, ladies and gentlemen, is even more so with virtual learning. Because in a brick and mortar facility, in a classroom, you meet the same people every day, the same teacher every day. My goodness, if you don't like that teacher, the year gets long. Whereas with virtual learning, you're meeting people from other parts of the world. You are all in one classroom, in a virtual classroom. You make friends. You study together. You learn more, not only about what everyone in Zambia knows, but also you're learning other perspectives about colleagues in India, colleagues in Brazil, colleagues in Germany, and so on and so forth. They bring to bear their own perspectives. Therefore, you become richer in terms of knowledge compared to the brick and mortar environment. Moreover, ladies and gentlemen, if you are in one situation, I am your lecturer, you are my students, it is feasible that occasionally I may come with a hangover to class. And if I do, I will find every excuse not to prolong the lecture, because after all I would like to go and sleep. Or I come tired because I forgot to delete the word, oh, I'm so tired, from my vocabulary. And so therefore, I find I'm fidgeting. Or indeed, I may not have prepared for class. And so therefore, the knowledge I want to give you may not simply be there because I'm not ready. Whereas with e-learning, 24/7, 365 days a year, the knowledge is fresh. By the way, the moment a textbook is written today, already because of this multiplier effect of knowledge, every 13 years, knowledge in the world doubles. The textbook we write today becomes obsolete. Thank you, sir. That's the word I was looking for, obsolete. Whereas with e-learning, that material is being added to my learning material constantly. So then the material I am getting is fresh, like from the baker's bakery. Buy it still hot. Study it while it is still hot. Oh, I hear this a lot. The quality of education is lower in e-learning, virtual learning, compared to face-to-face. Yet, the truth of the matter is that our programs go through a rigorous certification process. In fact, is anyone from the HEA here? In fact, if I may say so, the HEA, the Higher Education Authority, is even more rigorous in accrediting our programs than the face-to-face programs. This rigorous certification process, from the material to the lecturers who will teach online, to the environment, to the internet environment that we teach in, we are more tested, in my view, than a large number of face-to-face environments. And by the way, truth of the matter, the modules, we adapt them from textbooks which are taught in a face-to-face environment. The only difference, of course, is that our methodology for teaching is virtual compared to the punishment we have to endure every day to go to a class. When it's raining, you have to go. When you are hungry, you have to go. When you're thirsty, when you're asleep, you have to go, or else you're marked absent. The age you're learning, you do it in your own time, you do it in your own space. You don't even have to endure the aroma of the next door neighbor. You're on your own. We have covered this, where the myth and perception is that online programs are not accredited. The contrary is true. Higher Education Authority, we love them because they are very rigorous and they make sure that our programs meet very high standards and excellence. Oh yes, cheating. It is more likely that a person with e-learning methodology is likely to cheat, than a person in a classroom setting. However, in our view, not only view, but this has been investigated, it is more likely, cheating is more likely to occur in a traditional setup than on or via e-learning. In our situation, Unicaf, for example, every time you write and you have to submit something for marking, you have no choice. You have to pass it through a software known as Turnitin. It's like you're turning in the assignment. That software will tell you the percentage of borrowing that you have done. And then it will say no, too much borrowing, you cannot turn it in. So you go back, properly footnoted and all that. You're going to come below 10% of borrowing, and when you borrow that 10%, acknowledge who the owners of that knowledge or ideas are. Then it will accept. Otherwise, you cannot get a credit. You fail, you flunk because of this. In addition to the software research, in the enrollment levels, not too long ago, 2 or 3 years ago, we discovered at my alma mater that some students had set up sleeping quarters on the roof of dormitories. If you went to that university, my alma mater, you know what I'm talking about. If you're ever a monk, or a mojo, or a moma, there. When I was there, we were being waited upon in the restaurant with the tablecloth and so on, and food was waited upon us. The enrollment increased so much because of the demand. And suddenly there was no space where people could sleep. And they set up cardboard houses on top, on rooftops. This increase in the population, as I said, has of course led to the overcrowding in halls, lecture theaters. Like here, if this was a lecture, you would have people sitting everywhere, here and in the aisle. Thankfully, this is just a place for us to exchange ideas. So then, how do we address this burgeoning need for higher education? How do we do it? How do we ensure that every person who desires quality education can have access to that education? How? And what tools do we need to achieve this milestone? Do we continue building brick and mortar structures? Do we continue? Are we, in fact, going to achieve our mission of having everyone who desires an education have access to it through brick and mortar arrangement? I don't know. For us, and I wanted to put it to you, we have an answer. And it's a straightforward answer. Unicaf University is the answer. Let's look at Unicaf University, which is the answer for you and for me. This is a leading online platform provider offering affordable quality education at a fraction of the cost of the brick and mortar arrangement. In addition to conferring its own degrees, Unicaf University also has entered into collaborative arrangements because our idea is to educate anyone and everyone in the far-flung areas of the country, of the continent. Even where the brick and mortar cannot penetrate, we want to go there because we realize high-quality education is the key to national development. It's the key to the democratization of our institutions. It is the key to quality standard of life for us. Today is cholera, tomorrow it's what? With education, you can kiss all these things goodbye. We have more than 30 years of doing this at a global scale. But then our focus has changed. Yes, we're doing it globally, but however, we realized the greatest demand for education is right here on our continent. And that's where our focus is, to educate every child, to educate anyone who decides to be a child, including me, as I told you about studying medicine now, through Unicaf. It's going to be done. We are fortunate because we have been very well endowed with US dollars. If you look carefully, my pockets are bulging. But they're not mine. It's to educate younger generation and anyone and everyone in this room to have that, to fulfill that dream for a professional career which one only dreamt about before. We have dispensed more than $75 million through fellowships. We have changed more than 12,000 lives. These are the people who are buying planes now, jets, and helping others come from the ground and raise them to the top. We have also, I think this is the right audience to say this, what we call the corporate scholarship scheme, whereby by merely entering into an MOU with Unicaf, anyone from that particular organization automatically qualifies for up to 75% scholarship. The remaining 25% is peanuts. The money, if you forgo going to lunch that month, you are able to pay for the remaining 25% of your tuition. We have a rich inventory of programs, starting from diploma, certificate, in various fields. And more are being added all the time. As I speak now, we have tons of new programs with the Higher Educational Authority being vetted. And very soon, we shall be able to offer these programs. I'm sure in the first 1 quarter. Some of us have had a burning desire to acquire masters and doctoral degrees. You know, when I got my first doctorate, as I will now aspire to my second doctorate, believe me when I walked, even the step changed. And then, of course, when my friends would call, "Doctor," I needed to look around and say, who is there? Who are they calling? Slowly, of course, it sank. But that's not the point. The whole idea of getting higher degrees like this is to become useful to your humanity, to your society, so that you can provide a service and take the people from ground up and raise them to your level and beyond. Some of my students are far more educated and richer, and me, poor teacher, I'm still walking. Doesn't matter, because the objective of taking someone from the ground and pushing them beyond you has been fulfilled. So we have bachelor's degrees in various programs, in various fields. We have master's degrees in various fields, and doctoral degrees in all fields of human endeavor. Whatever you have dreamt of researching upon, we will provide a supervisor for you. So it's as easy as that. It seems I have really been able to hold you for a very long time. And at this juncture, may I thank you most sincerely. Number one, for coming, and number two, for your attention. Thank you.